24/7 operations out in Malaysia as well. So we've been on quite a strong growth journey over the past sort of 4 to 5 years so we've gone from sort of 45 staff to, I think we've got 450 staff now, there or thereabouts. So it's been a pretty wild ride, should we say. I mean, we've been on a buy and build journey, so we've been acquiring other MSPs during that time. Certainly learned some lessons along the way, but it's been a hell of a ride. It's been great fun. And actually, one of the things that's been really exciting for us is that we've always been a security first MSP, and now one of our key focuses is really security first, but also embedding automation and AI in everything that we do. And I think one of the key things that I've been really excited and actually feel really privileged to do is that when we've acquired some of these other service providers is to be able to just shift that focus to really security first. We've actually got a dedicated information and cybersecurity division that we started early in the back end of 2018 called AirSec, which is our cybersecurity division, and that's now grown exponentially over the past few years. So we've now got 25 people in our cyber team that then sits as a separate function within our overall IT service provider. So yeah, really looking forward to hopefully sharing some of those stories with the community. Hopefully we can share some of our experience around security frameworks, how they've helped us move our customers forward, and just hopefully share some experience.
No, absolutely.
If I can add there, Aideen, I've spoken to Lee prior to this meeting, and the funny thing is that we're in the same boat here, and that's really what I like about our business as being an MSSPer. I've had the same things going on, growing WithSecure the last year, exactly as Lee did from his perspective, not NIS2 or cyber essentially related, but more like all the challenges facing us. Size of the company does not matter in this case. It hits us all, and that's really what I love about this community. That's what I would like to add there. So we're here to learn from each other.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, and it's a privilege to have you both on, so thank you very much.
No problem, thank you.
Yes, so everyone, you are with us for the next 40 minutes. We're going to kind of get into the deep end, hopefully, a little bit about compliance and frameworks, just to kind of clarify, because I know it was something the guys want to mention as well. We're going to try and talk about the enablement that comes with this and how to best bring you guys forward with it, not necessarily the governance aspect. That's not kind of, as the guys are going to touch on, that's not necessarily your job. It's not up to you guys. So we're going to work on the enablement and what that looks like here. Perfect. So there is going to be a poll going into the chat right now if anyone wants to kind of work away and answer on it. There is also a Q&A, so please send in your Q&A. We have an outline set up for today, so we are happy to steer away from it if the questions bring us there. So please do use Q&A, use the chat function. I have a few Hunters people that are going to be monitoring the chat for me as well. So yeah, first things first, want to kind of start at the basics, guys. How are you guys approaching compliance and frameworks? What's the beginning stages for you?
Do you want me to take that point first, Gert?
Yeah, you go ahead, Lee. Yes,
sure. So I've got quite a strong view that I think from a cybersecurity perspective, it's often difficult, particularly in the SME space, to know where to start. And I think that's one of our roles as a service provider, is to help your customers on that journey. And I think security frameworks provide a few aspects, but first of all is that you are adopting and aligning your customers to a known standard that's trusted in the industry, but not just in the MSP space, globally. And it means more than just a framework. It shows that you're taking cybersecurity seriously. But one of the things I really like about frameworks is that if you understand the controls behind them, you know that when you see that badge, you know that A, they're taking it seriously, but B, they're also meeting a certain set of controls. And I think there's two that we're probably going to go into the most detail on today. The first one being Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. The other one that's actually slightly different, but also information security related, is ISO 27001. And I think just that when you align your customers to these types of frameworks, not only does it show that they take it seriously, but it means that you're aligning to an industry best practice that is continually reviewed on an ongoing basis. If we take Cyber Essentials, that's going to be reviewed by the NCSC, which is the National Cybersecurity Centre, which is a the government arm that is responsible for cybersecurity for the UK, and you know that they're looking at that framework. Is it still current? As the threat landscape changes, they will update the framework to meet the current needs and make sure that you're protected against the most relevant and up-to-date threats. And I think it's a really important thing for MSPs and for end users to look at cybersecurity frameworks as a way to know where to start, because there are many facets of a cybersecurity strategy, many of which I'm sure that we will get into today, but I think you can kind of see it as a guiding light of somewhere to start, have something to aim for, and you also get a certification at the end of it that you can wear on your website. You can put it on your email banners, and just shows, particularly like if I take my instance, for example, is that whenever we're looking to bring a new supplier into our organization, it's one of the first things that we look for. We've got an internal security and governance board that will go through and assess the risk of bringing that supplier in. Are they going to take our data and our customer data seriously? And those things go a huge way to showing that A, it's front and center, and they think about that this is important to their business, but B, it also gives you some reassurance that you know that they're meeting a specific set of controls.
Yeah, absolutely. I've made a few notes of questions I want to ask on that, but I'm going to let Gert jump in first and kind of respond on
No
it.
problem.
No, that's great. Great. What I would like to add here is that looking at the ISO that Lee mentioned, that's more like a label, exactly. And for us, when I compare it to the Cyber Essentials, your part, we have a small room divided there. Me talking about the Europe NIS2 and you talking about the Cyber Essentials, is that both things have it in common. It's a law. That's what makes it different, because I'm talking about the Dutch government here. We need the Dutch government to excel on this part in order to help us, because we got something going on that's not saying, like Lee said, you're taking data security very serious. No, you've got the Dutch government behind you saying you should do certain things. And that's what really helping me talking to my clients, saying, okay, it has to be done. There is no option. So it's not like a commercial story. It's something that's really necessary. And like Lee mentioned, exactly that. You have to make sure that you treat your like the whole chain. Your data is being protected from the whole supply chain. That's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is, and it's going to touch on both your things. Kind of what I picked up from what you said start off, Lee, is you kind of mentioned that these frameworks are a starting point for a lot of it. And even you, Gert-Jan, like you talk about like the legislation around it. Like, how does that process look? Like, is this just the starting point that you're building on top of? Is it an optional extra? How, I suppose, how much of that affects what you're doing and what you're doing with your partners?
Can I take this one, Lee?
Sure.
For me, and I would like to Lee to respond on my vision here, is that starting over, building a new MSP gave me the vision of security by design. I can just, and we're going to talk about stack later, I know, but I can build security products like the tooling by design, but also the legalization, the legal part of it regarding ISO or NIS2 as a law. So for me, it's like common sense of when you're an MSSP and you want to be taken seriously, you should embed it into your company. It's something you breathe, I would say. And that's not something you do alone. And that's the governance part. We're going to talk about that later. But that's my point of view regarding, how do you embrace, I think that's the right word, this into your, I think it's almost a culture thing. I don't want to over-exaggerate this, but it should be, I think. Lee,
No.
what do you think?
I think, first of all, I completely agree with you, which you'll be pleased to hear. But
Thanks.
I think also, just to answer your question, AD, and you said, like, is it just a starting point? And I think, to allude to one of my previous points, I think particularly when you're working in the SME sector, it is often a really good place to start. And that's because it focuses often, if we take Cyber Essentials for an example, number one, it's a prescriptive framework. We're going to touch on ISO 27001 or how I see that slightly differently in a minute. But one of the things that I feel really interesting and really pertinent to the discussion is that if you look at the areas that it covers, right? If we look at in fact, if I take my experience of where we see the most common routes to compromise, right? If we look at situations where we have incident response cases that we've dealt with and scenarios where we've had people contacting us that need help, that are in the middle of an incident, the three main common factors that I would see that we see as the initial route to compromise are, number one is still going to be social engineering, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. The identity, in my view, is the new edge. That's often the route into an organization. The second most common route to compromise that we see is through unpatched, external, exploitable vulnerabilities. And that's something, again, that gets addressed by these frameworks. And then the third thing, in my opinion, that we see as one of the biggest routes to compromise is cloud misconfigurations. So what do I mean by that? I mean people's Microsoft 365 tenants, G Suite tenants, all these things that house a lot of their identities, their corporate data, often haven't been hardened to a correct standard. I think from a industry perspective, there's been such a strong focus and drive to move everybody to the cloud, particularly Microsoft 365 got a huge market share. And we've seen so many projects where customers have now moved to the cloud, but by design, that platform is designed for collaboration first, security second, and that's no secret. And I think that's where, if you take frameworks, for example, if we look at Cyber Essentials, first of all, we're going to make sure you've got multi-factor authentication enforced across all users. That helps you against the first and the third thing that I mentioned. The second thing is it's going to force you to make sure that you're doing the fundamentals, making sure that you've got a process in place to patch your internal, but also more importantly, your external facing, internet facing assets will be remediated within 14 days if you've got anything that's got a CVSS score of 7 and above. For anybody on the call, I'm sure most people know, but a CVSS score is a way of determining the potential impact and essentially the risk of that particular vulnerability. And anything that's got a 7 and above is classed as a high or a critical. So that typically means that in most cases, it will be easy to exploit. There's probably a public exploit available, and we're normally seeing attacks in the wild. So with those three things, I mean, if we look at that, just what I've spoken about there, I appreciate this is quite a long answer to your question, AD, but
I like it, go on.
but the reason I feel it's relevant is that we've spoken there about the three most common routes to compromise that we've spoke about, and I would say in most cases implementing something like Cyber Essentials would probably have protected against those things. Number one, you would have been locked down so that you've got your multi-factor authentication enforced against all accounts. Yes, there's still ways around it, but it would still prevent most attacks. Number two, from an unpatched vulnerability perspective, within 14 days, normally you're probably going to be okay, unless it's a 0-day threat, unless it's something that's brand new, normally 14 days, you're probably going to be okay. If we look back at one of the most impactful cyber attacks, certainly in my career, if we look back at the WannaCry attack that hit the NHS and many other organizations, they hadn't patched that within 6-12 months. So 14 days puts you in a good position. And then finally, that cloud misconfigurations thing that we spoke about is going to make sure that, yes, it's not the complete picture, but it's going to move you really forward to those top risk factors that are going to susceptible your organization to being compromised. It really tries to take those, the sort of 99% problem away.
And I like how you approach that. You readjusted my mindset again of, we look at this and we talk about this and it's this problem or it's this big job that has to be done. And at the end of the day, it's your security. It's making sure that this stuff isn't happening. That's even you kind of readjusted me a minute there because I'm coming on and I'm like, problem, let's chip away, let's fix this. And I'm going, no, he's dead right. We need to just, at the end of the day, it's about the security and it's about, so yeah, thank you. You've put me back in my place for a minute.
Let me know if my answers are too long. I know sometimes I can go off on a bit of a tangent. So
no,
you're good.
I like it, Lee, because you make it sound very simple, and that is what it should do, knowing that it's hard to go for the 100%, but you start with minor steps, and the things we try to enable at our customers is, let's start, how big is your IT environment? And people often go like, yeah, we got 365 and that's it. And then you look under the hood and we all know it's much bigger. So just start with real basics. How big is your IT going? What vendors do you have, etc., etc. Just start there. Know everything. Try to know everything before you try to level up your your maturity level. That's what I would add on that. But for the rest, Lee, I appreciate your long answer. It makes sense.
Thank you.
And maybe you just answered that a little bit. My next question, Gert, of what are the most common words? What are the most common pitfalls that you guys kind of see with people implementing these kind of frameworks? And maybe it is what you're saying of are we overcomplicating it? Is that what's happening?
How should I say it without sounding a little bit weird? It's hard to make this sexy because clients, they have a lot on their table, right? The average client sees the NIS2, for example, like, oh, another law. But we know here in this session how extremely important it is, because if you talk about their data, they say yes, oh, this should be covered, right? For example, one thing I sometimes ask is, do you have like a fire insurance for your company? And they say yes, of course. But what's more crucial if you don't have like an office or you don't have your data? And they say, oh man, we can leave the office. Just want my data. That's why it's important. You're not acting. You have a fire risk insurance, but you don't have anything in place from your protecting your data. And then they start realizing, okay, this is where we should talk about. Just the common pitfall for me there is, if you ask the right questions, they will see, okay, we need this. But with all the governance and all the things going on, it's mostly too big to handle. You have to, like Lee already said, make it in minor steps and explain it in a way the customer thinks, okay, we should do it step by step, but please help us. And that's, so long answer here. The common pitfall is making it too big because it's so important. Maybe a little, do you understand what I mean here? Yeah,
no, absolutely. And that, I feel like that could be what it is. It's what I said about Lee readjusting me. I went too big. I went too big and I forget the basics. So it is, no, 100%. Lee, do you kind of echo that, or have you seen anything else you think is a big kind of pitfall in that area?
Tell you what, I think and this is a multifaceted answer I think one of the challenges that we see, particularly with some organizations, is that they might try and just implement themselves. And why you can do that, you can download, again, if we take Cyber Essentials, you can download the question set, but this isn't a sales pitch, by the way, but I really cannot express the importance of working with a professional who does this day in, day out. Not only, to Gert's point, will they make it easier and break it down into, some of these things, if you look at the whole picture, it might be quite overwhelming in terms of achieving those certifications. But if you break it down into individual steps, you get the business bought into wanting to do this project. It really is achievable, and it makes such a difference. But the point I was going to there is that working with a professional can actually make this less daunting, first of all. But second of all, they've often seen many ways of meeting some of these controls. They've seen easy ways, they've seen difficult ways, they've taken learnings along the way. And I've always been a very big fan of, and maybe this is because of the industry that we work in, you see people trying things themselves, and you know how much you can help those people because you've been through it so many times. I've always had that. I've tried to take that premise in my own career that actually, if you're doing something new for the first time, just pay for the professionals to help you. So one of the things that we did back in 2017 is we decided to become a Cyber Essentials certification body. So what does that mean? That means that we can take organizations through Cyber Essentials, we can mark them against the standard, and we can issue them with a certification. The reason we did that is that we've always been a really big advocate of wanting to make sure that you can check, you can help your customers through that process. And I'll just give you a very quick example of what that looks like. And again, this is not related to where IT specifically. Anybody who does this from an MSP perspective probably does something similar. But the reason I think it's so effective is that one of the things that we do for our customers each and every year that take Cyber Essentials, they take it seriously and they wish to renew that certification, is that each and every year we take them through a gap analysis process. Even if they've been through the certification 0 times, or even they've been through it 5 times, a lot changes in 12-month periods. User accounts get changed, new groups get created, policies change, businesses change, acquisitions happen. It's really important that if you work with a professional and they take you through that gap analysis process, they can provide you with a detailed report that will say, here's where your business is today, here's where you are against the standard, and here's the individual steps that we feel that you need to take to make sure that you meet that standard. So that would be one of the things I'd say, is that organizations trying to do it with no help and maybe getting overwhelmed. And actually the impact of that sometimes can be that you go, well, this is just too much. And you end up taking 0%, where actually working with somebody that can help you, that's been through this process, can really help you get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Makes complete sense. And I know we kind of spoke about that briefly. So for the audience, it's probably worthwhile mentioning this. When we had our conversation last week, the three of us, to kind of introduce and talk through it, we had a very interesting side where we were like, okay, Lee has gone through all this, and Lee is, I'm not going to say at the far side of it, but has done a lot of it. And on the other side, Gert had he's just at the end of his ISO stuff, and he's just at the end of a lot of it. So it's very nice to see the two very different perspectives on the freshness and the one that's kind of been in it a while. So I feel like that's coming through, which I quite enjoy is happening here.
Apologies, I think my camera's just like gone off twice, so apologies if that keeps happening. I am still here, so just bear with me.
Go with it. You're all good, Lee. That's okay.
Yeah, nice.
It's
That's-
probably better
that's
for the
great.
audience with the camera off, to be honest, but never mind.
Aideen, do we have time? Can I hop on the Lee's answer? Because Lee said it's not a commercial thing. I want to say exactly the same, because he triggered me with his input. Very, very good. That we have a thing called an IT sanity check. It's a list of things we ask to all of our customers, and we adapted it to the NIS2. We ask questions that are related to NIS2. So that's how we try to make it easy. Just like a thermometer, is that a correct word? That's how we. That's how we use it to say, okay, does this customer has the flu? Is he ill? On sometimes things. It's a little, maybe a strange way of saying it, but it helps to give the customer the feeling, okay, we've got professionals like Lee saying you need to pay those professionals, because we were putting an awful lot of work in making those sanity checks. So yeah, that's I would like to add there, is that's a way of giving confidence to your customers. We've got your back, but we need you, because they need to feel the understanding of why it's so important. They're running a business, not an IT company. We're running an IT company.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, not commercial, but my advice would be start something like that. Just ask your clients, talk to them. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. I don't know if you're seeing the chat right now, Gert, but you're getting a lot of love for your sanity check term.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Can
he
you
said it wasn't a commercial
check?
conversation, but he's going to end up selling that to them at the end of the session.
No, the real profit here, guys, is, of course, I'm willing to share the sanity check, because it will make it even broader. As soon as you guys start adding things to my sanity check, my customers will improve. Your customers will improve. We're in this boat together. There is no competition. Trust me. Absolutely. So yeah, I will not just share it's 140 questions. Bear with me.
I want to go
so
through
I will
them
not share it in chat. No.
Gert, would you mind doing a sanity check on me as well, personally? Is that okay?
Yes.
We're all going to book in for
you should disable your camera then, Lee.
No, absolutely. Okay. And that is something that I can get from you after the fact, Gert, and we can kind of send that out to attendees here. Yeah. So we can pull that afterwards. That's great. So we are going to have another poll question coming in to do with where we are on our framework journey. So guys, we have actually touched on this a little bit, and so we don't need to spend as much time on this, because we have spent a bit of time talking around this and where we are, about how this isn't just a framework, and about how this needs to be strategic, and this needs to be the blueprint for you guys going forward. So don't want to kind of overlap too much on that, but maybe we'll just go into how important is it, and obviously I know you're kind of in different stages of the companies, but how important is it to get that leadership buy-in, like to make sure that your leaders also understand that that has to be what the buy-in is, or your team similarly, that they appreciate that that's a lot of it too?
Who do you want to take that one?
I need some help here, Edine.
Okay, repeat it.
Okay, I'll take that point then, if you don't mind. So I think
No,
from
yeah.
my experience, it is so important that you get leadership buy-in. The reason for that is twofold. Is that first of all, is that if you haven't got leadership buy-in to the security framework, I would argue that it doesn't really mean much. And there's normally two types of people that go for security frameworks. There are those that try to tick the box, that often get found out quite early on when it comes to investment and it comes to changing their business. And they often either back out or they might be doing it to meet a particular customer contract or a supplier requirement, for example. Particularly now we're seeing it, particularly in the private sector, in the public sector, sorry, in government contracts, it's often mandated now that you have to have cyber essentials. But having that leadership buy-in, number one, means that it's important to the executive leadership team of that organization to buy into that, and it feels like it's important to them. If that isn't the case, I would question if you should be working with that organization, because your data, your customers' data, your personal data of your staff, you have to look at that as if it's on your own systems. If these people aren't taking it seriously and they're a sub-processor of yours, you need to be looking at that as seriously as how you would handle that data yourselves. The other thing is that quite often when you're implementing security frameworks, there's often going to be a cost to it. And that cost can come in a couple of manners. First of all, it's going to come in time and distraction from the organic growth mission of that business. Whilst it can be minimal impact if done in the right way, there's still going to be key people that need to change their processes. You might need to invest in, for example, I'm going to use Cyber Essentials again. All software must be actively supported by the vendor, as should be all your hardware. That can be costly if someone's been running on a legacy system that's out of support because they don't want to move to a Salesforce or a different line of business application. That can often be a significant cost. But it all comes down to how seriously you take security and how important it is to you as a business. So for me, they're the key reasons that the leadership really have to be involved. Is that A, it means they're taking it seriously, but B, the change and the cost from a time and investment from a monetary perspective often needs to come into the fold. So I often find that if you're trying to do this purely from an IT perspective and you haven't got the larger buy-in when it comes to those investments, there's got to be a real reason. And that reason for me should be twofold. It should be that, yes, you might want to meet the requirements of some of your customers' contracts, but most importantly, and certainly when I talk for us, we want to be leading from the front from a security perspective. It's important to us. And you only have to look at the news every week, every month, that it's never been so important to be able to give your customers that peace of mind that actually that data that you're sharing with us, no matter how sensitive it is, we treat it like it's our own. And here's how we show you that we take it seriously.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense.
Awesomely.
Sorry.
Awesomely. Yeah, it's a chat, Edine. So I can ask Lee questions also, right? Is that is it allowed?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah,
You're going off script here, Gert. You're going off script, but I like it.
yeah. Yes, let's go off script. Here we go. No, do you agree the following fact? As soon as you feel your new customer is not taking security seriously, will you say no?
Yeah, there have been times where we have either, and again, don't want to overshare here, but there have been times where there's been certain customers that we felt either the risk profile is too big, we don't want to be associated because they're not listening to advice repeatedly, and there's a couple of things to this. First of all, there's a commercial risk from being associated with an organization that won't take it seriously. There's also the cost impact, being completely transparent from a cost to serve perspective. If you know that a customer, I mean, let's give two examples. If you've got a customer that A, doesn't want to invest in protecting their organization, maybe they're using like a legacy antivirus product, you just know that the chance of something happening that you're going to have to respond to is quite high. If you've got a customer that doesn't invest in recovery technology, you know that it could be quite costly for the organization. It's a situation that I'd never want to be in, where a customer hasn't got a situation where they can, or a solution where they feel they can get back online. And third of all, I think it's really important that it's working with the customers that buy into your ethos. Like, one of the things that we want to do is work with modern small to medium enterprises that want to invest in IT. They don't see it as a cost center, but they see it as an enabler. They see us, and there's a couple of strands to this. There is risk mitigation on the one hand, making sure they're safe and the shareholders of that business can sleep at night. but also the other hand is driving that business forward. Is your technology partner driving you forward so that you're innovating and you're at the front of innovation, you get a step ahead of your competition? So in answer to your question, I think, yes, there have been many times that, and we don't ever like to do this, we always have a conversation first, but I think it's important that your customer base are moving forward with the direction of travel that you try to implement, and your ethos and your strategy and your customers that you want to work with.
Yeah, exactly. The reason why I'm asking is I've spoken to a lot of competitors during the PAX 8, and they were looking at me. Oh, you're really saying no, Gert, to a new client? Yes, I am, because I want my customers to take my business seriously, because they're asking me to take their business seriously as well. So I definitely do that, and it's in a commercial way. It's very strong. From the 10 times I've done it last year, 5 of them, or maybe 6, they went to agree and became a customer on my terms. It sounds a little bit harsh, but it really helps me focusing my company on doing the right things.
The thing I would say there, Gert, as well, is that you say on your terms, but it's not an ego thing. It's not like you're trying to be this strong business person. It's that you want to do the right thing. Like, I feel really strongly. There's also been customers where, and this is a more rare occasion, but there's been times where we've looked at their technology stack and been completely transparent and said, this is not something that we've got much experience with. You might be better with a different partner, because I think there's a lot to be said for standardization, because number one, you've got a better skill set within your own MSP to support it. You can get to them quicker. You've got more staff that can deal with it. You've got lessons learned. All of these things that just make sure, particularly when you focus around security, it's really important that you have training in your organization that can deal, they know that stack, and ultimately transforms into a better customer experience.
Yeah, exactly, Lee. One example, Aideen, is that we've came across a company that wanted to use our awareness mechanism to train the company. It's also necessary to get NIS2 compliant, to train your personnel. We found out they did not have MFA, for example. And I pulled the plug there saying, you can come back when MFA is done. They were like, okay, let's put some pressure on it. So that's a way of
I'm surprised that you didn't sell them a project, Gert.
No, like I said, I don't know any competition. So I asked my fellow competition, please enable MFA.
Absolutely. I like it.
Good. You know me already, Lee. I like
it. We shouldn't have caught up yesterday. I know you now.
No, absolutely. And Sam, apologies. I know you asked a question about 10 minutes ago and we are getting onto it, which is why I've kind of left it sitting there. Kind of brings me in nicely to this, guys. And Cody, if you don't mind sending in a poll that is going to relate to this as well, of about security stack and how we're aligning our security stack to make sure that we are being as compliant as we can, or that it is, as Sam actually nicely puts it, it's not over engineering or it's not overwhelming your clients. Are you going to fight over who's going to answer?
Shall I go first, Lee?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I was just reading the questions actually when the poll appeared.
Yes, sorry.
I see it also in the chat. Sam, indeed, asking guys aligned to your security tech stack. That's really troublesome if you have like a lot of customers and the rules are changing, and then you have to add other tech, and then you get the overlap. That's killing as an MSSPer. I do have to say here, because I started all over again last year, I did not have that pain point. But what I try to do differently now is, when I started, I already knew about, of course, the ISO and the NIS2, so I can align my tools with it. I've asked Aideen not to make this a sponsor talk, but I could easily add all the hundreds things we use to make sure we're hitting all the technical parts of the NIS2. For example, monitoring and cloud protection, SIEM, etc. We have all the technical things in place. And again, I don't want to sound, we're in a hunter's call, but hunters help me out there tremendously for my company, because they align with what the ISO and the NIS2 is asking for on the technical part. I'm not talking governance here. So I tried to build and change without overlap. Me building the product portfolio, I think that's your question is about. Try to not have overlap. And if you do, make a choice. Go for it. Really make a choice. Don't bet on two horses here. Never. That's what I would say. And I know how hard it is. In my previous company, we had over 300 customers. Yeah, it's difficult, but you should put your energy in one solution that gives you the most confidence of reaching your goal.
Yeah.
Easily said than done. But trust me, do it like that. My
Absolutely.
experience.
What was the question again, AD?
It's just around aligning your security stack to the frameworks. And to kind of use what Sam used, or Sam's wording on it, is it's how are you doing this without over engineering or overwhelming your clients?
So one of the things that we do is that, and I'm sure many others are doing this, but we carry out a process with some of the top minds in our business, probably on a quarterly basis. It's something called threat modeling, where we sit down and we look at, if you look at a typical SME, yes, there will be some nuances, but largely there are quite often the same sort of attack vectors that are going to become clear each time. And one of the things that we do is we look against each of these things when we go through the threat modeling process and say, have we got something to align to this? Some of it might be tool driven from a service. Some of it might be a hardening standard to bring your customers up to a certain level. One of the things that we also do again is that you'll find that typically most good cybersecurity advice, or particularly again, if you link this back to the framework, you've got to make sure that you're covering each of those areas. Some of them you may well not have a managed service for, like for example, making sure you've got the right IT policies and procedures in place. You might be looking for internal IT leadership within the customer to do that, or if not, maybe you can support them, or they're working with a specialist to get those things created. But I think it's really important that if you're trying to allow and trying to help a customer get to a certain security framework, it's really important that you can help them on that journey. One of the things I'd also say that similarly linked to one of my previous points around working with a specialist and working with a professional is that you'll find that in some MSPs is in fact in most service providers, it might not be your job to take them through that specific framework, particularly not if you go into more of the specialist areas like 27001, for example, governance, ISO 27001 lead auditors. It's quite a different skill set, but where the MSP really comes in is helping them to meet those controls. For example, implementing detection and response, making sure their 365 tenant is hardened to a correct standard, making sure they've got all these things together that can, I mean, it's great, this can drive project work. That's obviously fantastic, but also as a part of that, you're helping your customers to just be better and helping them to align to those standards. Something else that I want to just mention that's a bit of a bonus point, really, that probably from risk of oversharing, but I've always had quite a strong opinion that if I see a Cyber Essentials Plus badge on an organization, it gives me a different level of comfort about different things to 27001. Hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble from the ISO standards here, but one of the things I'd say is that they prove different things to me. So from a Cyber Essentials Plus perspective, I like to refer to that as a prescriptive framework. That means that there are X amount of ways that you can meet that control, and you either meet it or you don't. From a 27001 perspective, it gives me more confidence they've got stronger policies, procedures, they're taking risk management seriously. It tells me that they take those things, it's important to them within their business, but it might not necessarily give me as much comfort seeing a 27001 from a purely cyber perspective and resilience perspective, because you can say, actually, this might not be relevant for our business, or actually, we're not doing this, but we're managing the risk in this way. It's on our risk register. We meet quarterly to address, and we do some manual things. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's great that they're managing risk in that way. But to me, it's different than saying, I have a patching policy and an application that makes sure that my third party and vendor and operating system patches are installed within 14 days. It gives me a different level of comfort seeing a Cyber Essentials that's more prescriptive versus a more non-prescriptive framework such as 27001.
No, absolutely makes sense.
That was not related at all to your question, by the way, but it came into
was.
it might be relevant for people.
Can I add something for Sam here?
You
that I
can.
don't
We're
want to
coming
miss.
up. No, you're good. We're coming up on the last minute or two, but fire on.
Okay, yeah. I should really mention there for Sam, but all the attendees is that, and I've sent it to Aideen as well. She can share it with you afterwards. I have translated the Dutch NIS2 guidelines to English, and I've highlighted the technical ones. Just to get back to Sam here, there are 5 urgent things that you as an MSPer should take care of. You can just look at that and say, okay, we've got this technology for that, we got Fortinet for this, we got this and that, and then you can have like a really confident story regarding, oh, this is how we should nail it. So that's what I would like to add here for Sam, but for all the attendees, you can make it simple that way, because there are like 10 rules. I think there are coming more in the Netherlands version of the NIS2. The way I described, but we can share that with you.
Yeah, I have that, so I can get that shared over. Perfect. Well, yeah, any final words, guys, that you want to share before I kind of wrap this up?
I think from me, hopefully that was useful for people. I think, I like to think we've got quite a lot of experience from a security framework perspective. I think I'll add one last little nugget that's been really helpful for us from a security framework perspective is that we've spoke a lot about Cyber Essentials and 27001, but there's one final thing that I think is really important, particularly where it's helped me. If you look at the NIST cybersecurity framework, NIST, one of the things I really like about that is it breaks a cybersecurity strategy down into 6 easy to understand pillars. You've got govern across the top, which makes sure you're managing each of the individual areas. But then you've got identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Anybody who's not familiar with that, when you're articulating a cybersecurity strategy to a non-technical audience, that's something I've found super helpful to be able to say, this is what you've got in this pillar. Actually, this is why all these things are important. So outside of those things that you might go to achieve where you get a badge, there's also a huge amount of benefit in looking at those high level topics of the NIST cybersecurity framework and where your services fit into those pillars. I find that as a really good way to articulate a cybersecurity strategy to a non-technical audience. And outside of that, I just thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Hopefully you took some benefit from what we were saying and look forward to seeing you all soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Gert, sorry, before I kind of wrap up, would you like to add anything? Are you happy enough?
No,
Okay.
it was a great pleasure. Thanks, guys, for your time, and nice meeting you guys.
Yeah, no,
Thanks a lot.
thank you very much, everyone, for joining. The first of the EMEA Fireside Chat. We are hoping to run these quarterly. So we'll hopefully be back in the new year, which is kind of crazy to say that I'm going to have to tell people to have a nice Christmas between now and then.
Sounds scary, doesn't it? It's coming around.
It sounds scary, yeah.
It does. So I know, look, I was pretty passionate about making sure that what we were doing today was something that really felt focused in EMEA. So if anyone has any other topics they would like to see the next time round, please, all ideas are open. And yeah, just genuinely thank you very much to both of you guys and for everyone else for joining.
No problem at all. Thank you very much.